welcome everybody
Yeah.
to Cut Two, which is our new found film podcast. Um, yeah, Aiyana, would you like to tell people what's in store?
Yes. Well, this podcast is hosted by me, Aiyana Goodfellow, and the wonderful Stanley Lane.
Stanley Lane, thank you very much. I didn't know whether I was going to say that, but yeah,
I didn't know either. I was waiting to see
yeah,
which direction we'd go.
yeah.
This is a podcast run by two professional actors who very much love film, who both have an interest in directing, and on my part, an interest in writing. And I think also theatre as well. I mean, we can do theatre reviews on this potentially.
Oh yeah, 100%. We should go and watch some theatre and definitely do some. Yeah,
For sure.
100%.
But yeah, we just want to talk about film, and we want to keep each other accountable to watching more films and
100%.
critically engaging with them, I think is the key here.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Do we want to start maybe by talking about how we became interested in film?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Tell
Do
us,
you want
tell
to?
us, Stanley.
Oh, tell me. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you go first.
Um. Well, I think it's just sort of a natural progression, really. With acting, obviously, that was a passion of mine from a very young age, and I think I was really into TV shows and stuff like that, like Doctor Who, and like, yeah. And then that was just sort of a bonding thing I had with my dad, and I really liked TV shows and stuff like that. And then I got into acting, and then I was like, oh, I'd love to be able to be other people. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was really cool. I was really into action films actually when I was younger, and I always used to run around like James Bond and like jumped on the sofa and stuff while watching it because I thought I was a secret agent. Thought I was really cool. But yeah, no, that just sort of the fantasy aspect of it really, really like intrigued me, and I loved going to the cinema and watching films. I was like, oh, I wish I could do that, and theatre as well. And my mum was doing pantos and stuff a lot, and I was sort of following her around doing that. So I was sort of in the little ensembles and stuff. But no, yeah, film, I think I became a bit more of a fan when I was a little bit older because I was like, oh, I can watch different films now. I can, go and watch like Russian films or stuff like that and things that I haven't even heard of. And now it's opened my eyes to such a big world. Um, and now I've sort of dipped my toe in, I've realized how much I haven't seen. And it interests me so much that I can go out and go and see these films. Do you know what I mean? And especially like meeting you as well, I think that was another thing, like finding someone else who loves film as well and loves talking about it. And I can just see like us smiling and stuff. It's like, yes, we know, we love it. We love it. Yeah. What about you?
So,
How did you come to it?
how did I come to it? By accident. I
Mm,
became an actor before I became interested in filmmaking and before I became a
yeah.
filmmaker because I started on the West End and
Yeah.
randomly did an open audition for The Lion King, got in, did a few other things on stage, got my incredible agent Max, and then started in TV and film. And I think it was just spending time on set in that wonderful environment. There is nothing to me like being on a set. It's got this kind of addictive, magical energy to it. And I find it so inspiring the way that everyone comes together and collaborates in the least cheesy way possible. It makes me believe in humanity's ability to change things because of how chaotically but incredibly and creatively people come together to work on film projects and TV projects. And I've asked so many people like why are you in the props department? Why are you in cinematography? Why are you in sound? And the resounding answer from the people I've asked is just that they love telling stories. And I think that's such a human need and desire. And I think also that's kind of one of my intentions with this podcast with you, my dear Sam,
Mm,
is
well.
that I hope we get to tell stories about telling stories through
Mm,
our interpretations of the films and theatre shows that we watch. Um,
yeah.
and how we can kind of also talk about our experiences as actors. I think we
Mm,
have quite a unique perspective um, because we understand maybe a little bit more than most what goes into it and how it kind of all comes together. We understand to an extent, to a humble
mm,
extent, um, the hundreds of people that are credited at the end of a film and how
Mm,
all collaborate and come together.
yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of people that go into it, and we've been very lucky that we've been able to step behind that those frame lines, and get to explore it. And like just as you said, like props to you saying that. I mean, like 100%, it's such a special thing to be on a set and making something. And it's even better when you make friends and then you're all together and you're all making this something, and it makes it such a nice memory when you look back at it and you're like, oh, I really loved doing that. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's when I'm the most alive, do you know what I mean? I feel like that's my use in the world. And
Yeah,
it's a special thing that we have.
100%. I have to second everything you said about meeting people. I think you were the first person I met who was, at the very least, who was like a similar age to me, who was as passionate about film.
Aw.
Listeners
Yeah.
who wouldn't know, we spent about a month in 2020, summer of 2020, locked down in
Yeah.
a hotel
Hmm.
filming a show called Invasion.
Yeah.
And we were in the hotel rooms right next to each other and
Hmm. It
would
was meant to be,
it was meant
Aiyana.
to
It was meant
be,
to be.
exactly. We would watch films till the wee hours of the morning and
Yes.
plan projects and chat about our passions for directing. And
Yeah.
100%, when you meet other people who have passion and creativity in them, it's such a blessing.
Yeah, it is because you can really like relate to them, I feel, and I think they're the best sort of people to get on with. That's the best people that I've seen to draw to are people that are creative and not even in film, like in like art and music and stuff like that. People that have taste, and I
Yes,
think that's what really gives me life. So then we have something to chat about. Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of something to chat about, today
Mm,
we are talking about The Brutalist.
yeah. Brady
Um,
Corbet's new third film, um, that just come out. It's new, um, critically acclaimed at the moment, actually. But yeah,
I believe three-time Golden Globe winning,
that's the one. Yeah,
Oscar nominated, or am I making that
Oscar
up?
nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor. I don't know the other ones, but best cinematography, I think, set design, all of them. So for a lot of
Yeah.
Oscars, but
Well,
cool.
two.
So should we do our little
Yeah.
our cut two?
Yeah, I'll cut to.
Okay,
Something is silly.
go on.
Cut to a strange Negro man roaming around our property.
Um, cut two. Adrian Brody does cigarette acting.
Very talented cigarette acting.
Very, very cool. Yeah. Who wants to read the description?
I have too many tabs open. I'm going to request that you
Okay.
do.
Okay, sure, yeah. When a visionary architect and his wife flee post-war Europe in 1947 to rebuild their legacy and witness the birth of modern United States, their lives are changed forever by a mysterious and wealthy client.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
had not read the description before I watched the film. I had not seen the trailer. I did not know who was involved other than Adrian Brody because he was on the poster. So I
Mm.
went in completely unaware with zero expectations,
Yeah.
which is how I prefer to go into watching films. And I did not realize that it was as long as it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my first impressions were that it was quite impactful. It was quite interesting. I'd never seen a film about an architect before, so I thought that
Mm.
was a very unique thing. And I only realized yesterday in my minimal research that it's not based on a true story.
A lot of people are there being like, "Oh my God, was this a real story?" And even got me fooled a little bit. And even the actors, when they read the script, were like, is this a real story? And it's
Hmm.
not. But it's based on a couple of people, but it's not, it's fiction.
Yeah, yeah. It's not an autobiographical biographical.
No. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I found that really interesting because the whole time I just had made the assumption, and it was really interesting that were able to kind of create this mood and character study um to pulling this film together, that made it feel like that. I quite like being duped and convinced of things that aren't true as an audience member.
Yeah.
I like
Mm.
to be played with mentally.
Yeah.
But also because it's not a true story, I was like, well, I'm finding it harder to justify the length of this film.
Yeah, yeah. Fair,
Because
fair.
now it's not like, okay, you were trying to do justice to an important historical figure.
Mm.
Just it took a bit long with it.
Mm.
I would like to like just say a disclaimer. Like I do appreciate a long film and I don't mind a long film. Um, but I think there was something about the intermission that enabled you to reflect on the first part. And then when I
Yes.
sat down again for the second part, I started to feel the length of the film in a way I hadn't.
Okay.
What did you
Yeah.
think about the length and what were your first
About the
impressions?
length.
Yeah.
Um, I had no real issue with it. See, going into this film, I was very, very excited for this film. Um,
There you
I
are.
was, yeah, I was very excited. I watched all the trailers. I read everything I could. I was a
Mm.
big fan of Brady anyway as an actor. I think he's really, really cool. And this was his third film, so I went religiously and watched his other films as well, which are really, really great. But the I knew it was going to be a really long film. I was really lucky enough actually to talk to one of Brady's friends actually, one of Heath Ledger's friends actually called Matt, um,
Amazing.
and he talked about it a little bit about because he had quite a struggle making the film. He couldn't really get it financed by many people. They did say, yeah, it was going to be too long. No one's going to see it. If you make another film with an intermission and you make it about an architect, no one's going to watch the film. So, yeah, he had a big issue with that. But then A24 stepped in and financed the film, and they did it for 10 million. They did this film for 10 million, and it really couldn't have been done. Like it shouldn't have been done, but it did. And something that he said, that film and the way that they made that, it shouldn't have been allowed to happen, but it did because he just believed in his gut instinct and just ran with it. But I knew it was going to be long, so I was strapped in and was ready to go. But the intermission, and what I've heard from other people as well, the intermission is actually really helpful. Not only just to have a break and maybe go to the toilet and maybe get
Yes.
another drink, like because that's great as well.
Yeah, I was
Um,
desperate for the loo by that
yeah,
point.
100%. Because I was in like the middle row. I was late as well,
Oh
so
God.
I mean, I literally got there just in time. I mean, it was literally when that when the big VistaVision title comes up at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's when I got in. So I was like,
Oh,
thank God I made it for like the overture. So I got in. The overture was playing. It's like this massive like brum, brum, and it's like dum 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 dum, which I love the score by the way, which we'll get into
yes.
later. Bloody
Oh,
hell, amazing. So I got in and I had to like, when you're late and you have to like get a whole row to stand up for you so you can get to your seat. So thank God it's just a black screen that said overture at first, but I got in and yeah, so I knew it was going to be long. But I really liked how it was a photo and how it gave you a countdown. That's
yes.
really sick. And that's what
I
I think an intermission should do.
Yes. Countdown perfect because it's always I one of the long films that I love is The Sound of Music, and they have an
Mm,
intermission in The Sound of Music, but it doesn't have a timer. So you go to the toilet and then you start hearing it like playing and you got to rush back from getting a snack or whatever. So I appreciate that.
yeah.
And I think there should be more intermissions in film in general because
Mm,
I liked the opportunity to, like you said, take a break, but also to reflect. I did appreciate that. And I think
mm,
on your point about the photograph, I think one of the reasons I became so convinced that it was based on a true story is because it felt very much like the film was walking through memory. I think that was established with the overture and, the opening scenes where there's people kind of flurrying around and nothing is particularly clear and you're trying to figure out what's going on. I really like that way of being brought into the film because it immediately encourages the audience to become curious about what's happening and who you're following. But there was also kind of this tapestry of other forms. There was the scenes that were filmed, but then also
Mm.
these other clips that seemed to be from kind of archival footage of the
Yeah.
year and
Yeah,
war.
there's off times, and it was real footage, and it was really cool. It's like random archive footage that sort of showed this, like, 50s. It was probably from the 50s.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really cool touch to the
And
film,
then there was
actually.
like radio clips, the photo in the
Yeah.
intermission, the letters, and the fact that it had the sort of epilogue at the end, and that
Mm.
it sort of spanned across all these periods, very much to me felt like I was reading a book, if
Mm.
that makes any sense, but watching it happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's a very poetic way of creating a film.
Yeah. And I really, really loved what you said about that beginning bit and that opening sequence, that long shot, which I put in my notes. I really, really admired the long shots and like the long takes. That
Mm.
one massive long take of him, like, rushing out of the boat, and like then at the end, like shaking his friend, but like, we made it, we made it.
Mhm.
So when I first sat down to watch it, and then I heard that score, which was just so cool. And then, yeah, watching this long take of him like going through the ship, and it's really busy and loud, and I just thought that was sick. And that really awesome shot of the Statue of Liberty upside
Yes,
down. It's so
yes.
cool, man. And such
It's
an
it,
interesting way to distort it. Do you know what I mean?
it was such a simple but clear piece of symbolism in telling you that what this film is about, like the American dream and how
Yeah.
that is not a real thing. It's
No,
more like an
yeah, and
American
it's
nightmare.
always something that's dreamed upon. Do you know what I mean? In a lot of films, I think, and I think, yeah, this longing for a comfort and a stability in
Mm.
America,
Mm.
especially for someone that is fleeing post-war times. Do you know what I mean? 100%. I agree with you.
Okay, so tell me, so your first impressions were the score you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so
What
my
else?
first impressions, obviously, I had quite a wide impression of the film before I watched it, because
Yes, that's true.
I was watching all the directors on directors, I was doing all of the roundtable stuff, so I heard a lot about it, because unfortunately, which is really annoying, and I hope things change by me saying this, but they won't. Um, it's really unfair that the Americans get to watch this film months and months before us, and we
Oh
have
my
to
God.
wait months to watch this
See,
film.
this is exactly what I was feeling last year
Because,
with
oh,
um with what's it called? Oh my God, it's like my favorite film. How have I forgotten?
all of us strangers.
Yes, thank you. All of Us Strangers. They got to watch it like a million years before, and I was,
And it's a British
it's a
film.
British film.
Mm.
No, I will never understand that. I will
Andrew
never understand.
Hay, what did you do?
I'm sorry, like of all the people to let like see films first, it should not be Americans.
Do you know what it is as well? I think it should come out at the same time, because it also spoils it.
Yes, it's so
It
true.
really does. Like, the way people talk about it, sometimes the way that directors talk about their films, they're like, just give it away. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
damn, the whole world hasn't seen it yet. So
This
yeah,
is why
that's
I
one
take the
thing.
kind of close my eyes approach, where if I see a film that looks remotely interesting, I force myself to disengage from it. Like I'm clicking not interested on my YouTube recommended.
Oh wow,
It
okay.
doesn't come
That's a
up.
really interesting way of doing it. I'm it's really weird for me. I have no real patience with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the trailer, I'm waiting for the official the teaser, and then the official, and then the final. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just a big, like, a fanboy, maybe. That's my fanboyishness of
Yes.
loving film, I think. But no, I think it's great as well to sometimes go in it blind.
Mhm.
I love it when my friends like, do you want to come see a film, and I don't know what it is, and
Yes,
then I
exactly.
see it, and I'm like, oh wow, that's what happened with a film called Empire of Light. Is I went in there completely blind, and I was
Mhm.
like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I just saw like a poster or something. It was like a cinema in Margate, but then I watched it. It's like such a beautiful, like, sad film. But
Oh,
yeah,
that
um,
is on my list. That is on.
yeah, no, it's great. Everyone should go and check it out. I love it. Obviously, because they're shooting on Vistavision, or they're shooting on film. I think that's also why it's good to take advantage of the long take, they've got a scene. The actors know what they're doing because they know what they're shooting on, and they know they filmed this film in 33 days.
Wow.
How do you shoot a film like that in
That's
33 days? It blows my
monumental.
mind. It really does. And
But
it
that's,
took
I feel like that's an
that,
average length for a film, but for a film of that runtime
yeah.
and immense, it just
They
felt
were
like a
they
focus.
were so ready though. It took them 7 years to get here with this film. Seven
On,
years.
on average, it takes from writing to getting it made about 6 years for most film
Mm,
or TV productions to happen if they
that's
get to come.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
not too far off the average.
He wanted to make a film. I think this is what I heard from Felicity Jones, who's in the film as well. He wanted to make a film about making a film, about how hard it is to make a film. But it was like, no, that's a bit boring. Let's just make it about an architect who's really struggling. Because in the film, he's really, really struggling to get his work financed and stuff like that. There's not enough. Like, I remember in one of the scenes, they're talking about, you know, one of the buildings that they're making. They're like, we haven't got enough money. We're
Yeah,
running out of time. And that's what it is with filmmaking. A lot of
yeah.
the time, you're probably going over budget every time, and you need to shoot it because otherwise it's gonna get dark, and you want the sun for this shot, so you
Yeah,
got to go and do it
you're losing the
quick.
light.
Come on, come on, come on! Let's go! And that's one thing I think as aspiring directors that I'm really scared for, and that we're gonna have to experience all of this.
You got to go in prepared for
Yeah, 100%.
minimum. You've got to go in prepared to shoot it in much less time than you actually have in your mind.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to go
Mm.
over, but at least it helps you not panic when you do it.
Yeah,
But
100%.
that point about light just triggered for me. I was watching the cinematographer of the Brutalist, Lol Crawley, I believe it is.
Maybe. I think it is. I
Definitely
think so.
Crawley. I'm not sure how to
Yeah.
pronounce the first name, to be fair. But he was talking about shooting day exteriors, particularly in the scenes where they were in Italy and in the cave. Um,
Mm.
and shooting all of that by removing light and sort of embracing the shadow and the silhouette. And I have to say that the cinematography in this film was
Oh my God.
excellent. I
Oh,
think
so
it's
gorgeous.
on par with the performances as like my favorite thing about the film.
Yeah.
And everything about the visuals was so satisfying and interesting and subversive. Even the way that they did the credits at the beginning, where it was moving
Mm.
to the side, I was like, wow, I've just never seen that. It's such a simple thing to change, but it makes it so much more interesting. Um, yeah,
I'm
incredible.
really glad you said that because that's another thing for me. And
Yeah.
it's the gorgeousness of the shots. And what you said about light as well. There's something that he said, the director, and he was like, film, obviously it's quite low aperture anyway. Like the way it's quite dark compared to what digital is, of course. But
Yeah.
and that's what digital is great for. It can shoot in really low light really well. But with
Mhm.
film, and there's sort of this one sort of the luminance is very it's quite dark, but they embraced that and they really loved it. And I thought the colors of the print were insane. I was lucky enough. I don't know. I don't know if you saw it in film. Did you see it in film, or did you watch a digital
No, I'm
uh
pretty sure I saw it
projection?
in I don't know actually.
Um, it
I
doesn't really matter.
don't know.
But I watched it.
I
I
didn't know
watched it
they were
in
doing two productions of it.
yeah. So obviously they have 70 millimeter screenings, and then
Mm.
they have obviously digital, which is just regular um
Oh,
print.
I'll
So
have to look back on it. I mean, it felt amazing and immense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
So
doesn't really matter. I
yeah,
was just saying, but when I got to see the print as well, the colors are just gorgeous. Like some of the setups are like you've got dark, but then you've got light as well, and just the colors that different times of day produce. Oh my goodness! There's one shot. I don't know. I think it was in the middle of the film. There's two shots actually that I really loved, and it's one where he's trying to get food, but they've run out, and they're like, "Sorry, everyone, go home."
yes,
And he's like, "Oh, I'll wake up early for the boy or whatever to go and get him
yeah,
something." And it's really like sweet, intimate moment, but it's really dark and it's really
yeah.
gloomy and it's really, really, really cool. And there was one as well. I don't know what was the scene, but it was a really nice sunny orange. It was glowing day, and it was such a. I was like, oh, I want to be able to shoot on film one day. Like the colors are insane.
It looks beautiful. Digital
Yeah,
is incredible, but I just think film is a whole other
there's a
conversation.
panic about it. There's a panic about how you can't like. It's like it's physical. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
People have
tactile
less
and
time and ability to shoot over and over again. I was
yeah,
talking to a camera operator on Under the Bridge, and he was saying that um when they used to shoot on film, everyone would have such a kind of quiet respect for the shooting time because they knew they didn't have that. And not that like people have become wildly disrespectful since then, but just the
yeah,
energy on set has changed because
mm,
people have a little bit more flexibility with digital.
100%.
I want to talk
Yeah.
about the themes though of this film.
Okay.
There are some
Yeah.
really interesting themes. Um, I really was very glad to. I think I did know that um, Laszlo, or well, at the time I didn't know he was called Laszlo. I just knew that Adrian Brody's character was a Holocaust survivor going in. That was like one of
Yes.
the things I did know. I was um really kind of touched by the way they approached it. I think it's so easy for historical events and significant historical events to just become like numbers and summaries in a history book. And we
Mm,
get to see or really delve into the very human
it's just a title
before and
being like,
after
it's just a title with the year, and it's like,
this
this
happened.
happened. Ugh,
But their whole lives, and not just kind of within the atrocities and the violence, but like in the before and after. And I don't know if I've ever seen something about somebody who has survived the Holocaust and is building their life after. And there's probably loads of films like that. I just haven't come across them. So I found that really impactful. And I felt like I could also personally relate to the sort of immigrant theme. Even though I'm not necessarily an immigrant, I am descendants of immigrants and like am this sort of semi stranger in England in some ways. I've never felt like fully connected. But I think that also meant that I was able to emotionally connect to the sort of journey of Laszlo. But
yeah, and sort of finding your feet.
yes, that
Do you
journey,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um,
But then at the
yeah,
same time, because I connected to that concept and the intention of the movie fairly quickly because I understood what that might be like, I think that was also one of the reasons why it started to feel like a long film because
mm,
there was so much of him struggling, and
yeah,
um I wanted there to be a triumph, and I feel like we didn't really get that throughout the whole film. But it felt almost like when I've watched films about like racism or about slavery, it's like, yes, this is a history that should be explored and acknowledged and uplifted, but also like I want there to be a hope. I want there to be a triumph. And I didn't
yeah.
really get that. And that was really disappointing. I have to say though, I for the first time I watched this film in a everyman cinema, and
Okay,
oh my God, was it lovely. You get a little seat, little sofa,
I'll have
and
to look this up.
they come round and they ask, do you want some food? It's
Ooh,
lovely. It's a lovely experience at the Everyman. I will be getting a membership in due course. But
lovely. Oh wow, it looks very
it's
fancy.
so fancy. It's so much more expensive. It was like £15. But
No, but I feel like
but
as moviegoers
yeah.
and as fans, we want to pay that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I think it does get quite expensive nowadays, but I think that's just of the time, isn't it? It's just like
It is.
it's just come to a point now
Just the
where I'm just
economy.
like, yeah,
Economy.
20 quid for a cinema ticket. What the hell?
It
But
is what it is.
my ticket for the 70mm screening wasn't that much, I don't think.
And
Let
yours
me
was at the
just
Barbican, or am I lying?
it was no, it was near there. It was at the BFI South Bank,
Oh, right. Yeah, that's
which is near the National Theatre. Which the National Theatre is a brutalist building.
Oh, look at that
Yeah,
trivia.
there
Oh,
you
that's
go.
another thing that I felt actually. So it's called The Brutalist, and I didn't think
Yeah,
much about why it was called The Brutalist until
me
the
too. Me
because
too.
I didn't
Yeah,
recognize it as brutalist architecture. I just recognized it as this is a new kind. And
yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of brutalist architecture. I'm just going to be honest. It's not my favorite.
I mean, it's not something
Just
I've dipped my toe in, really.
but
Yeah,
it just reminds me of like cheap tower blocks in London that have been abandoned by the council and government where people are forced to live like in poverty and disrepair.
yeah,
So to me, I have like pretty negative connotations with that type of building and with that form of architecture. So I don't love it.
yeah,
But I was disappointed that we didn't really get an understanding of why he was a brutalist architect until the end, where I believe when it was in the 80s and the older Zofia was talking about Laszlo and his creations, and then she kind of linked it to
at
his
the end.
in the Holocaust. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Wish I'd known that the whole time because I feel like I would have been more interested in the journey that he was on as an architect and what
Yeah.
this meant to him and why he was so passionate about it. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed in that it took so long for us to find out why it was called the Brutalist. So firstly, I really liked the subtle theme of like the solidarity between Gordon, the black character, and then Laszlo as a Jewish character. I liked that kind of connection and solidarity that they had as immigrants. Um,
Mm.
but it was also really interesting because um, after his traumatic sexual assault, he kind of rejected his wife and rejected his friends, and his
Mm.
commitment to building kind of that solidarity with people became more of a commitment to capitalism and this kind of project that he was working on and was so attached to even through his own demise as a result of that. Um, and then I thought it was also interesting the contrast between him and Attila. Attila as um, someone whose identity and truth had been colonized through his experience as an immigrant. Um, and then Laszlo, at the beginning of the film, was trying to hold on to that identity, but I felt as time went on, he was also colonized, but more kind of in his ideology, like he became aligned with that capitalist mindset,
Yeah.
similar to Harrison, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I think those characters really found each other. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of that was their connection. And I think that sexual assault scene, I think that's a really important factor. I
Yeah.
think he really did. I mean, this film really, no wonder it's split into two with the intermission, because the first film is him, it's hopeful and it's his journey and it's quite quiet and nice, and but the second is more grand and more like very darker. Yeah, and I think you really start to like see this distance that he starts to have with himself even after that
Mm,
tragic thing happened, and
mm.
you can really see it. And one of my favorite scenes, if we segue maybe into that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Saying us.
um with that in mind, in the second half I really 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 thought that the bedroom scene between Laszlo and Ejvet, um, and I think that's just such beautiful acting, first of
Mm.
all. And it was
Performances. Okay.
oh, everyone did incredible.
Hmm.
Everyone.
They were so good.
Um,
They were really so
yeah.
good.
But
The
yeah, in that
subtlety of the
scene,
performances.
yes. When they don't even have to say much, they can just say it with their faces. I think that's really powerful acting, when you can say
Feel everything.
something without saying it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
hundred
So
percent.
so that's your scene. That was your standout scene.
I think so. I think because it was quite a long film, I had one one in the first half and then one in the second. I
Okay, go on.
think the first half one I really, really enjoyed actually. I quite like Guy Pearce and Adrian Brody's comedic timing in this film. I don't know if you found that.
Yes.
When they were like, I find these conversations, I don't know what the line is, but I find them very,
Yes.
I don't know what the
Oh,
word
what
is
was it? It was
now.
the word
It
beginning with
was so
I, like
good.
interesting
Yeah,
or
it was like
intelligent or something.
interesting and intelligent. And it's
Yeah.
like, yes. And they say it like twice or three
Yeah.
times. But I really liked when they are in the party and they're like, bring the whiskies, we're going walking. And I went up to the hill and he was like, right, I want to announce that I want you to make this for me. And I
Mhm.
just found it hilarious, actually. I just find Guy Pearce like dragging all of these, like, all of his friends and stuff. Harrison, I think his name is in the film,
Yeah.
dragging all of these like people up to the hill to say, just to say, I want you to build this here for me. And it seemed like they walked a very long way,
Yeah.
but I just found it really, really impactful because at the end of that scene, when he's like, I want to do this for me. And it's really like, oh my God, he's giving him a chance. You know what I mean? And they all the rest of them are walking away, but then the frame it stays on Adrian, and he as a character doesn't walk away with everyone else. He takes a moment where he sort of just looks up and he looks and he's like, okay, it's my time now. And now he walks back. I don't know. I found that really like subtle. It's a quite
Yeah.
subtle thing, but I really love the
Yeah, that
little
was an
detail.
interesting choice. I feel like it also highlights Harrison's I mean, excuse me, but it highlights the fact that Harrison is a dickhead because
Oh
he's
yeah,
really self-centered and selfish and not like I think decidedly unaware of maybe how he impacts other people and
yeah,
very theatrical. And it also is
mm,
so horrible as well when you look back at a film knowing the whole story when it feels like this kind of potentially hopeful moment. Because when we were first introduced to Harrison, I was like, for fuck's sake, like, I don't want to deal with this person. I was like immediately mistrustful of these rich white people. I was like, they're going to mess this guy's life up. And then they're
yeah.
like kind of helping him a little bit. And I was like, okay, maybe I
But that's how it starts, isn't it? They're
misjudged
like, oh,
them.
come on, we'll give you a guest house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, maybe they just appreciate his talent. I mean, probably in a very self-centered way, and that, they think about what they can get from him, but it could be useful. And then obviously, it just delves and descends into further abuse from Harrison to
Yeah.
Laszlo.
Yeah, yeah, I really didn't expect that scene to happen,
You
and
know
when
what
it
I
did,
really did? And that's
did
so weird
you?
because as soon
Oh,
as they went
okay.
into the cave and they were dancing and Harrison was looking at them, I was like, oh my God, I know what's going to happen next. And then I did the same thing. I told myself, no, don't do that. Stop making these assumptions and judgments about people.
No, but
And then it happened. And I
that's
was
wow,
like,
you saw it.
I
Wow,
saw it,
okay.
which I think says a lot about, I think says a lot about my experience in life and my perception of people, like my ability or my instinct is to see that kind of person and that kind of man and be
Yeah,
mistrustful. I've grown up in a country where I haven't always felt welcome. I've learnt that. Whereas maybe to an extent, if you're a new immigrant and you haven't experienced this for a long time, or you haven't grown up in that environment, you might not be as savvy and clued in, sensitive to those warning signs, I guess.
and I
And I
think
think that's what Elizabeth has. Like, I think she senses that, even though she, is sitting and having picnics, she senses that in them
and
coming.
another like crazy scene, and I really, really loved that they put it in is when she, even though she was stumbling, went up to him and was like, "How
Yes.
fucking dare you do that?" Do you know what I
I
mean?
think that was one of my favorites because it was the closest that we got to satisfaction towards the end. It was the
Yeah,
closest that we got to hope. It was the closest that we got to
yeah,
triumph. And it was a really interesting subversion of a trope in media where like um a man will defend his woman. I thought that it was really beautiful and unique to have it the other way around. Um
yeah.
and they generally had quite an interesting relationship throughout the whole film because she was really present but not on screen for that first part. And then her sort of support of Laszlo um was really significant in the second part. I just thought it was really interesting. I felt like that was a relationship that I hadn't seen portrayed in film before. I mean, there's a very specific dynamic, I'm sure, that comes out of being forced to separate, not seeing each other for years, and then reconnecting in a new place and reconnecting really as new people, or at the very least, new versions of yourself. Um, But yes, I share your appreciation of that scene. I think that would be one of my
Go on, give me your others.
um I would have to say the opening was quite powerful. And the other dinner table scene before the lawyer, I think he was, offered to help Elizabeth and Sophia come to the US.
Yeah,
There were just little moments where we kind of saw people chit-chatting, or we would see Harrison's children, the siblings, like whispering to each other and laughing.
yeah,
Um, there were just little moments where it felt like we were in Laszlo's body, and we were sort of viewing all these people's judgment, and they were sort of asking him these curious questions about his experience of the war and the Holocaust, and he was sort of being made into this spectacle.
yeah.
I felt like
And
that
this
was
sort
really,
of this thing to be fixed and this thing to take care of.
yeah, but in a
And
very creepy way.
yeah, and a manipulative way as well, I think.
Yes. And then my other like standout sailor scenes were um I found the monologue, like you said, where Harrison was mentioning that he finds, oh, that's it. He finds conversation I find conversations with you intellectually stimulating. That was it.
That's the one.
And
Yeah.
he was talking about his mother and his grandparents and writing them a check and all of that stuff. And then that monologue got interrupted by some other guy. And then we cut to the library, and then they continued with that monologue. I found that really quite a radical
Yeah.
decision and an
Yeah.
interesting interruption. It was so grounded
Mm,
in what conversation is like, but outside of how we would tend to write it in a scene. Um,
yeah.
so I like that moment. And to go back to the scene where Elizabeth interrupts their dinner,
Mm.
Harry's reaction, I made of that he is like his father. I believe that
He's so
was
annoying.
it was suggested that he did a similar thing to Sophia earlier in the film.
Yeah, it's very prominent, isn't
Right.
it, that he's interested in her and in a weird way.
Yeah.
And the way that he'd just say, well, I'm not gonna have sex with her or something, I think he
Yeah.
says,
And then
you know.
immediately went to go find her and said, "Oh, let's go for a walk and stuff." And then we saw them coming back.
Yeah.
I
And
feel
like
like,
she's there near the water in her swimming gear or something, and he's like just sat there casually with a whiskey or whatever. It's just like it's
yeah,
very like, oh, gross
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Like your dad, father like son.
yeah.
No, well, no, it was just a little moment that I really enjoyed. It's not even particularly it was my favorite scene, even though it was a really cool one. It's when they're planning and they're looking at the map or whatever, and that other architect that the guy hires as well to like come. There's an amazing scene where it came out of nowhere and the whole cinema was like a sold out screening and everyone just burst out laughing. It was hilarious. It was a bit when I think I don't know again. I don't know how it goes like off the cusp, but it goes everything that is shit and is bad is you. And
Yeah,
he just says everything that is bad is you. And yeah, it's so good. It's like really witty from
such a
him.
good insult.
Yeah, 100%, because you just don't expect it. And he's just like everything that is great is what I do, but everything that you do is it's rubbish. Um, but no, yeah. What's your improvement?
There's no scene that I would
Me
change
too.
as is, but my main critique, I think, is the ending, because the main way it ended was amazingly with Elizabeth like defending him, but we kind of just left him in that place where he was traumatized and vulnerable
And wallowing.
and wallowing, yeah, and we didn't get to see him come out of that. And then again, the last scene that we saw him, even when he was in that room, this exhibition being celebrated, like he was old and in a wheelchair. And not that that necessarily means that you're not a powerful person, but we didn't get much from him in that scene. Like there was no, he didn't say anything in that scene. So we kind of
Yeah.
left him in this place of disempowerment, which felt
Yeah.
like the film was almost doing the same thing as Harrison did, which is just viewing him and leaving him in a disrespectful place, if that makes any sense. If I'm
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like it didn't need to be that because they're not a real person. So I think
yeah, exactly.
they could have, I love that you are the exact same, that you don't really particularly want to change a scene, but I really would do that ending completely different.
Completely
I
different.
don't think it should have been a jump. I don't think it should have been a jump into the future either.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the thing that biopic or whatever, when a movie is a biopic
yeah,
and they do that jumping thing all the time, they're like, oh, here we go. Like, here's this time. This is when they won this Grammy, and here
yeah,
we go. And now we're going to go into the studio and they're going to record this album.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, oh, it's really boring.
yeah.
Please don't do this.
I do that. I tried to justify it because I thought it was based on a true story. But
And
once I
then they went
found
to
out that that,
digital. They went in this really weird sort of digital style as well. And I'm like, I think they should have kept it all encompassed in this sort of film
Mhm.
thing. And I think it shouldn't have jumped. I think it
Yeah,
should have stayed, and it should have been quiet and a good ending, like the whole film has been.
yeah,
And
quiet. Yeah,
also, and also, they couldn't find Harrison, could they? Or did they? They didn't find him, did they?
oh yeah, yeah. We'd never
He
found
ran
out who
away.
it
So
was.
that's even a thing that annoyed me. It's like, what, we can't even get justice. But maybe
Yeah,
that's the moral of the story, that these guys can get away with it. Maybe like, let's say, Harvey
but it,
Weinstein or
but
something like that. Do you know
we
what I
didn't
mean?
see him get away with it. Like we didn't see him triumph either. We just saw him
No.
kind of disappear, and then there was no explanation
But I
for it.
think there's a moral of the story there. I think that
Mm.
these guys can just go and run away from these issues and run away from who they are. And it showed that. It showed that because you
Yeah,
could see him break. You could see him like, oh no, I'm not gonna admit to this. Of course not.
yeah.
But
I mean, I think a sad ending is generally more realistic in life, but when you are creating fiction and it's not based on a true story, I don't think it's necessary. There's no need to leave your characters there, especially when it might not be like. I think it's a different thing when it's like entirely fictional versus when it's fictional but tied to very real events and experiences.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
So we
Um,
basically our scenes are the same.
yeah, actually, this is great. And yeah, because I couldn't really think about it to do a scene differently or something, because it was all quite good.
Yeah,
Yeah, he didn't even get
like
to say anything.
yeah.
It
It's
should have been, if they did do that and they did want to do a time jump or whatever, I'd get him up on stage and he'd be like, yeah, so this is what happened, and like,
yeah. Why
he
can't he
gives us a
tell his
summary
story?
of what just happened, because it's
Mhm.
his story.
Yeah,
This whole
exactly.
film is his story, and I just sort of felt like a viewer at the end. I was like, oh, so we're just gonna sort of exhibition him now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very strange. Like they didn't necessarily have to. I'm not against him being older in a wheelchair, just to be clear. Like we're not against
No, 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 no,
we're
no.
not saying
We're
that
not
people who are
ableist.
older in a
Is that it? Is
wheelchair
that
is
what
like
it's
a
called?
bad ending or that
No,
people
no, no,
can't
no,
be
no. We
powerful. We're
love
just
wheelchair users.
saying that they didn't give him any power in that.
No, yeah. There should have been a last word from him, and I think he should have had the last line in the film.
Yeah. Because the last thing I
Um,
saw from him was him crying with his wife on a hospital
yeah.
bed, right? No, I think when he went to be with her in the hospital, he took her to the hospital and she woke up. She said, "Do you remember what you
Oh
can?"
yes.
I don't think we
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
the
yeah.
confession, but it was implied that
No,
it
we
was.
didn't. Yeah, because then she had that thing in the bathroom, didn't she? And then she had to go and rush them off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She had to go and rush
Okay,
off to the thing.
so
So
pulling it all together,
yes,
give us
rating.
your rating.
So I gave it a 5 out of 5. I thought it was a
Oh wow.
really, really, really great film. I obviously, again, because I was really excited about the film and really positive about it, that I was like, yeah, this is amazing. Everything about it is incredible. And I think it really, really deserves the credit that it's getting.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd say 5 out of 5.
Wow. Okay. I definitely not got a 5 out of 5, but I feel
No, no,
bad.
that's fine. That's fine. That's
I
fine.
think it's a
Don't.
really well done film,
Yeah.
but for the reasons I've outlined,
Hmm.
um, it wasn't my favorite. And I think
Yeah.
the way I know that a film is a 5 out of 5 for me is if I can't stop thinking about it. I did tell you this in person.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, of
when I
course.
watched, for example, one of my favorite films of all time, All of Us Strangers, I
Mm.
thought about that film every single day for about 63 days afterwards. When I watched The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I still think about at least once a week, I was obsessed.
Yeah.
Um, so the fact that it didn't make me want to immediately see it again, the fact that I didn't feel like I needed to keep processing it,
Mm.
means that it can't be a 5 out of 5 for me. And then of
Yeah,
course
no.
I had the critiques that I had. So I'm giving
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
I think a 3.5.
Oh, okay, then that's cool, and I really respect that, and I think it should be different. I think our ratings should be different, but sometimes the same. But
I
whatever.
feel like I'm
I
also
think
just a harsher critic. You're so lovely. Also
I
because
just
you also understood what was happening going into it. So I feel like we had two
yeah,
completely different experiences of
I
the film.
think so.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
to everyone who has listened to this. Thanks to our
yeah,
mums.
100%. Yeah, thank you to our mums and to the one other person. But yeah, no, we hope with this podcast that we can, show our love and have discussions about it. But also, we hope that we can bring on guests. We're in talks at the moment
Oh, oh.
of getting people on. So that would be really, really fun and exciting, and hopefully draw a new audience to our a lovely podcast. But thanks everyone for tuning in for our pilot episode.
Indeed.
Hopefully, going to get this greenlit. No, I'm joking. It's already
Oh
greenlit.
God.
It's ours. Um, but
The
but
only
no,
means of production.
yeah, this is cut too. So thank you for joining us.
We need to get some like end of podcast music or something.